The wind howled like a wild beast across the frozen plains of Orexianine. The snowstorm had swallowed everything sky, ground, sound. Mason trudged through knee-high snow, pulling a heavy crate of fuel behind him. His oxygen mask hissed with every breath, the freezing air too dangerous to breathe raw. He cursed the storm under his breath. This planet was supposed to be quiet, a simple stop for supplies. Instead, it had turned into a frozen nightmare. His shelter was just 1 kilometer away. Almost there. Then he heard it. A sound. Very soft. Almost a whisper carried on the wind. He stopped. Another gust of wind blew through, but this time the sound returned. It wasn't the storm. It was a voice. A small voice. Mason turned, squinting through the thick snow. "Hello?" called. "Nothing," he moved toward the sound, heart pounding. His boots crunched the icy ground beneath him. Then he saw it half covered in snow, a crash skimmer. The small transport vehicle looked like it had been buried for days, but the voice came again, fainter, clearer. "Please, my mother will serve you. Just don't let us freeze." Mason's heart froze. He rushed forward, clearing snow from the broken hatch. Inside, a young alien girl was curled up under a silver blanket, her lavender skin pale with cold, her big golden eyes glassy from the cold. Her lips trembled as she repeated the words again. "My mother will serve you. Just don't let us freeze tonight." Mason didn't ask questions. He reached in, pulled her into his arms, and then spotted another figure slumped behind her, a woman, unconscious, barely breathing. He checked their vitals. Weak, but alive. "Hang in there," he whispered. "I got you." He dragged both of them to his sled and covered them with his thermal tarp. Then, without looking back at the broken skimmer, he turned and pushed through the storm. It took 40 minutes to reach the shelter by then. Mason's fingers were numb, and the tarp was nearly frozen solid. But the heat inside the cabin snapped to life the moment he closed the door. He laid the girl down gently on the heated floor and checked the mother's pulse again. It was slow, but steady. The girl opened her eyes. She blinked at the lights and turned to look at Mason. She didn't speak this time. He knelt beside her. "You're safe. I'm not gonna hurt you," she whispered again, softer this time. "You're human." Mason gave a tired chuckle. "Yeah, last I checked," her eyes filled with tears. She looked toward her mother. "She hasn't eaten." "In 2 days, I've got supplies," Mason said. He moved quickly, heating up some protein broth and water. He handed the warm cup to the girl, who took it with shaking hands. Mason carefully fed the mother next, spoon by spoon. Slowly, color began to return to her face. She opened her eyes, sharp, intelligent, and full of something he couldn't quite read. Pride, fear, gratitude. She spoke in a hushed voice. "You are our savior." Mason raised a brow. "Just a guy with a heater." The woman sat up slowly, though her body trembled. She bowed her head deeply to him. "My daughter spoke true. I will serve you if you allow us to live." Mason backed away slightly, surprised. "Hold on, Neem, not asking for anything like that." "But that is our way," she said calmly. "We were not meant to survive the storm. You changed that? I offer myself in payment." Mason stood, shaking his head. "I don't want payment. Just want to know who you are and what happened." Girl looked up. "We ran. They were chasing us." "Who?" Mason asked. She paused before she could answer. A loud metallic thunk struck the shelter door. Mason turned, eyes wide. "Someone's out there," he whispered. "No," the woman said, her voice suddenly tight. "Something is out there." Asterisk, the sound outside was gone. No more knocking, no more scraping, just silence. But Mason didn't trust silence. He stood frozen near the door, his hand gripping the emergency blaster he'd taken from the wall. The alien woman, still weak, had sat up straighter now. Her eyes, wide violet, full of something he couldn't name, watched him closely. "Do not open that door," she said firmly. Mason glanced at her. "Why? They can smell heat," she whispered. "They were following ours." "Them? Who's they?" The woman didn't answer. Instead, she looked at her daughter, who was now curled up on a heated blanket near the cabin's central core. The girl had fallen into a light sleep, cheeks warmer now, her small fingers still clutching the heat pack Mason gave her. The mother's expression softened. "My name is Sira," she said quietly. "I am of House Ilvith." "Never heard of it," Mason replied. "I didn't expect you to," she said. "We are not known outside this quadrant. We were once advisors to the High Council of Orexianine, until we refused." "Refused what?" Sira looked up at him. "To join the breeding registry." Mason's face changed slightly. "The what?" Sira's voice was like ice. "The High Lords are dying out. Too much cloning, too much genetic control. So they collect bloodlines. Noble women are forced to join the registry to bear children for the Empire. My daughter, they wanted her." Mason looked at the girl. "She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. She's a child," he said. "Yes," Sira nodded. "But she has traits. Her body is normal, but her mind is not." Mason frowned. "What do you mean?" Sira hesitated. Then she stood up, wobbling slightly. She pressed her palm to the side panel of the shelter. The screen glitched, then static. Then the panel flickered and shut off entirely. She pulled her hand away. "That wasn't your system," she said. "It was her." Mason turned toward the girl. "She did that." Sira nodded. "When she was 5, she shut down an entire city block for 6 hours. No training, no warning. Just fear." Mason sat down slowly. "That explains why they're chasing you." "She is too powerful for their control," Sira said. "So they want her broken or used." Mason took a deep breath. "So what was outside?" Sira's voice turned cold. "Hunters, biohybrids. They track heat, movement, and energy fields. Once they lock onto a trail, they do not stop." Mason looked at the door. "Then we're not safe here." "No," Sira said. "You are not." Mason chuckled nervously. "You keep saying you like, I didn't just save your lives." Sira stepped forward. Her tall figure moved with grace, but her eyes were different now. Calmer, focused, almost royal. "You saved my daughter," she said, "and that means everything to me. But I do not expect you to die for us." He looked at her. "I'm not going to hand you over either." Sira looked surprised. "Why?" "Because I don't leave kids behind," he said simply. "And she's just a kid." The door suddenly hissed again. This time, Mitt. Wasn't a knock, it was heat. The outside sensors flashed red dot. Something was scanning the cabin from outside. Mason stood up quickly, rushing to the control panel. "They're trying to overload the door lock." "They will melt it," Sira said calmly. "Unless she stops." "Them." Mason turned to her. "Your daughter." Sira nodded. "But she must want to do it. She must feel it." "She's a child," Mason said again. "Yes," Sira said. "But she is also the only thing keeping us alive." Mason looked at the girl. Her breathing had grown uneven. She was waking up. Her golden eyes slowly opened, and the lights in the room flickered. The door sensors went black dot, then rebooted, then turned green. Again, dash normal dot silence returned outside. Mason stared at the panel, then at the girl. She sat up slowly and looked at him. They were at the door, she said quietly. I made them go away. Mason dropped his blaster. Sierra bowed her head. Now you understand. He took a step toward the girl. What's your name? Girl blinked. Lumi. He smiled. Thank you, Lumi. She looked at him for a long time. Then she said, You're warm, but your mind is quiet. Mason didn't know what that meant, but he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about hiding anymore. This was a war waiting to start. Mason didn't sleep that night. He sat by the window, blaster on his lap, staring out into the dark snowstorm. The sensors were quiet now, no heat signatures, no movement. But silence didn't mean safety. Behind him, the alien girl, Lumi, slept. Again, her head rested on her mother's lap as Sierra gently stroked her hair. Mason turned his head toward them. She's special. Sierra nodded without speaking. He asked softly, She really made them leave, didn't she? Yes, Sierra whispered. She touched their minds, made them fear. Mason leaned back. That's terrifying. She doesn't want to harm, Sierra said. But she feels everything. Fear, anger, pain. The more emotion she feels, the stronger her mind becomes. That's why they want her, Mason muttered. Control her. Use her? Sierra nodded. Yes, they will burn down whole cities just to take one child like her. Outside, the wind howled again, this time louder, colder, more violent. Mason checked the storm level on the screen. Winds are changing. Ice pockets forming. There's a break coming in 2 hours. We should move. Sierra looked surprised. Move. Where? To an old mining station, Mason said. It's 20 clicks northeast, abandoned years ago, but still has shielding. No heat signature. They won't expect us there. We can't walk 20 kilometers in a storm, Sarah. Warned, we don't walk, Mason said. We ride. Mason's snow hauler was barely functional, a boxy old hover transport that rattled more than it floated, but it still moved. He loaded the last supply crate in the back, helped Sierra and Lumi into the heated cabin, then started the engine. The screen buzzed. Wind speed, 78 kph. Visibility, poor. Risk, high. He didn't care. They couldn't stay. The vehicle pushed forward through the blizzard. Snow pounded the windshield and ice crawled along the edges. Mason gripped the controls tightly. Lumi stared out the window. They're following, she said quietly. Mason's heart jumped. What? I feel them, she said. There? Angry Sierra sat beside her. Stay calm, Lumi. Don't reach out. I'm not trying to, the girl said. They're loud. Burning loud. Mason checked the radar. Nothing, but he believed her. He pressed faster. The engine wind. Hauler groaned. They bounced over rough ice. Behind them, in the storm, something moved, our shapes flickering through the blizzard, like shadows in water. Then came the roar. Not from the storm. From them. Mason looked into the mirror. Something big was running behind them, barefoot. Armored. Skin, tall and hunched. Biohybrids. Their eyes glowed blue through the storm. They weren't machines. They weren't fully organic either. They were bred to survive the cold. Can kill. We're not gonna outrun them, Mason said. Sierra stood. Keep driving. I'll slow them down. She opened the side hatch. Wait. What are you doing? Mason yelled. Sierra turned, her long black coat whipping in the wind. If they take Lumi, the galaxy will suffer. She raised her hand in from beneath her sleeve, a thin blade extended, glowing green dot. Mason shouted again, Get inside, you'll freeze. But Sierra stepped out. The hauler kept moving. Lumi screamed, Mama. Then the blaster fired. Behind them, green flashes lit the storm. Screams followed metallic. Inhuman, the hauler shook. Mason kept going. 10 more kilometers. LUM. I was shaking now, tears streaming down her cheeks. She stayed behind for me. She's fighting, Mason said. She'll catch up. But he didn't believe it, not fully. Then another sound, thud on the roof. Mason looked up. Something had landed. Claws scraped metal. He grabbed his weapon and shouted, "Lumi!" Down. The hatch above ripped open and a hybrid dropped into the back cabin. Its body was tall, pale, with sharp silver limbs and a glowing chest core. It growled, low and alien. Lumi's eyes flashed golden. The lights flickered. The hybrid paused, jerking its head. Mason aimed, but Lumi stepped forward. "No," she said. "I will make him stop." She raised her hand. The hybrid froze. Its limbs twitched. Its glowing chest dimmed. Then collapsed. Dead. Mason lowered his weapon. "You killed it." Lumi didn't answer. She just sat down, suddenly tired. Then the communicator crackled. A weak signal came through. "Mason, you copy." His heart leaped. Sira, alive. Got one, bleeding, but close. Mason slammed the brakes and turned the hauler toward the signal. 3 minutes later, he found her limping through the snow, sword broken. One arm burned. He pulled her in. She fell into the seat, breathing heavily. Lumi rushed to her, crying. Sira touched her daughter's face. "You're safe. Good girl." Mason stared at them both. "You two are something else." Sira looked at him, her eyes heavy. "We're not done yet." "No," Mason said. "But we just proved we can win." The mining station appeared. Like a ghost in the storm-tall towers half buried in snow. Windows shattered, metal walls frozen stiff by years of ice. No lights, no movement. Just silence. Mason parked the hauler behind a collapsed storage unit and quickly helped Sarah inside. Her arm was still bleeding, and her coat was torn. Lumi followed, her eyes alert despite exhaustion. The door creaked. As Mason pushed it open, the inside smelled of rust and frozen oil. Dust danced in the cold air. The heating system was long dead. Perfect hiding place, Mason muttered. Too broken for scanners, too old for interest. He shut the door behind them and welded the lock shut. Sira collapsed against the wall. Her breathing was shallow. Lumi knelt beside her. "She's hurt worse than she says." Mason opened his medkit and carefully began to patch the wound on her side. It had been caused by a plasma burn. The hybrid had gotten close to close. "You shouldn't have fought alone," Mason whispered. "I would again," Sira replied. Every time Lumi was quiet. "Will they find us here?" she asked. Mason looked at her. "If we stay hidden? Maybe not. But if you use your power, I'm trying not to," Lumi said. "But they scream in my head. I feel them looking. Can you block them out?" "I don't know." Mason paused. "You said before you could make them feel fear." Lumi nodded. "Yes, I push fear into them. But it also hurts me." Mason placed a blanket over her shoulders. "Then rest. We'll need your strength." Hours passed. The storm outside softened, but the cold inside bit deeper. Mason worked to seal the gaps in the walls using spare cloth and scrap. Sira slept beside the old generator. Lumi didn't sleep. She just watched Mason. "Why are you helping us?" she asked quietly. Mason kept working. "Because someone helped me once." "Who?" "A woman I never saw again. She gave her food to a stranger who was starving. That stranger was me. I survived because of her. And now ... I help others." Lumi tilted her head. "You think kindness is a weapon?" "No," Mason said, standing up. but sometimes it's the best shield we've got. Suddenly, Sierra jerked awake, her eyes wide. They're here. Mason turned toward the window but saw nothing. Not close yet, Sierra said, but coming. They're tracking something else now. What? Not us, she said. Another fugitive, or maybe another child. Mason walked to the window and looked out. How many people are they hunting? Hundreds, Sarah replied. But most don't survive the first winter. Lumi and I escaped early, before the real hunt began. And now we're stuck in the middle of it, Mason muttered. No, Sarah said. You can leave. You have a ship. Let me and Lumi go on foot. They won't chase you. Mason shook his head. I'm not leaving either of you. Sierra stared at him for a long time. You don't understand what she is. She's a child. Mason said, she's more than that, Sierra replied. She's what comes next. Mason turned. What do you mean? Sierra stood, holding the wall for balance. Lumi's mind grows every day. If she lives, she may one day control thought. Across systems, communication, emotion, even war. Her mind is a seed of something never seen before. And the High Lords want that seed for themselves, Mason guessed. Yes, Sierra said, to turn her into a weapon. Lumi walked toward them slowly. I don't want to hurt anyone. No, Mason said. Then why does everyone want me to fight? She asked. Mason knelt down, because scared people only understand power. But you don't have to be like them. We'll help you choose who to become. Suddenly the floor vibrated very softly. Then again, Mason grabbed his scanner. Heat signatures, 6 targets. Approaching from the north slope, they found us. Sierra stood tall. We run. Mason frowned. Out there, in this? We know tunnels, Sierra said. This station was once connected to others underground. We can vanish again. Mason looked at Lumi. She nodded. I feel cold mines. They don't. Think like us. But I can hide my light. If I try hard. Mason grabbed the supplies and weapons. Then we move, now. In the underground tunnel, the air was even colder, but the darkness hid them well. Mason's flashlight showed frozen tracks and broken machine signs of a forgotten world above. Them, heavy thuds echoed. They're here, Lumi whispered. Mason looked back. Keep going. Don't stop. Suddenly, the tunnel ahead collapsed in explosion from above. Rocks fell. Dust filled the air. They're cutting us off, Mason shouted. Sierra turned to Lumi. Now, your power. Just enough to break the rock. Not too much. Lumi placed her hand on the wall. Her eyes glowed faintly. Then, nothing, silence, a crack formed. Then another. The rocks split apart, forming a path. Mason pulled them through. Behind them, shadows moved fast, too fast. Then the light above exploded. A hybrid dropped behind them. Mason turned to shoot, but it was too late. Then Lumi screamed, and the hybrid stopped mid-air, frozen, its body twisted, unnaturally, and felt like glass-shattering silence again. Lumi fell to her knees. Mason ran to her. You okay? I pushed too hard, she whispered. Sierra lifted her gently. We go now. She needs rest. Mason looked behind them. The tunnel was quiet, but they all knew. The chase was far from over. The tunnel opened into a wide underground chamber, an old control hub, long abandoned and half frozen. Broken chairs lay scattered. Cracked screens blinked softly with low power. In the center, Mason dropped his gear and took a deep breath. We'll rest here, he said. Sierra laid Lumi on a bench, padded with leftover insulation. The girl's face was pale. Her body trembled. She had used too much of her power to save them again. Mason walked over, sat beside Lumi, and checked her pulse. Still. Strong Sarah stood nearby, arms crossed, but she is weakening. Every time she reaches out, it takes something from her. We can't let that keep happening, Mason said. I agree, Sarah replied. That is why I must ask you something. Key looked up. Take her, she said. Leave this place. Take her far from Phyrexianine. I'll stay behind and make sure they don't follow. Mason's brow furrowed. You want me to abandon you? I want you to save her, Sarah replied. She can't run forever. She needs a life beyond hiding and pain. And what about you? He asked. Sarah smiled faintly. I've lived longer than I was meant to. My purpose is done. No, Mason said firmly. She needs you. I've seen the way she clings. To you, if she loses you, she'll survive, Sarah interrupted. She has you now. Mason stood. I'm not her father. But you are human, Sarah said. And that means something to her. You protect without asking for anything. She trusts you. He shook his head. There has to be another way. Sarah walked to the control panel and pressed a few keys. A hidden map flickered to life-old mining tunnels, long sealed. This leads to a landing site, she said. Old cargo port with signal towers. If you can fix the comms, you might call for off-world help. Smugglers, maybe, Mason muttered. But they won't risk a girl like her. They might if you pay, Sarah said. Or if you promise them a secret the galaxy would kill for. Mason sighed. You mean Lumi. Sarah's silence said. It all later that night. Lumi woke up. She looked around the chamber and saw Mason sitting near the door, holding a blaster. She stood and walked toward him. You're sad, she said softly. Mason looked at her. I'm just thinking about leaving my mother behind. He blinked. You heard? She nodded. I always hear. Mason leaned back. I don't want to leave her, but she thinks it's the only way to keep you safe. She always says goodbye in her eyes before she says it with her mouth. Mason was quiet. Lumi stepped closer. But you don't want to run anymore. He smiled. Weakly. No, I don't. Running hasn't gotten us far. What will you do then? Mason looked at her. What do you want to do? I want to live, she said. Not hide, not fight. Just live. Then we find a way to make that happen. Mason said. The next morning, Mason stood over the control console. He stared at the blinking light and old emergency signal. It was weak, but maybe enough. He connected his old wristpad and boosted the signal. Static filled the room. Then dash click. A voice, ... unknown signal. Identify. Mason responded. This is independent trader Mason Cole. I have 2 survivors, 1 priority passenger. Need extraction. Coordinates transmitting now. Silence, then. The voice came again. Signal received, ATA, 10 hours. No promises beyond that. The signal ended. Mason turned to Sarah. We've got a chance. 1 ship, maybe friendly. She nodded. That's all we need. Then the floor shook. A blast rocked the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sarah's face went pale. They've breached the upper tunnels. Mason grabbed his gear. We hold them off until the ship comes. Sarah didn't move. He looked at her. What? I'll go, she said. No, Mason said. We fight together. She stepped forward, sword in hand. You protect Lumi. I'll make sure they don't get past this level. Mason grabbed her arm. This is a death trap. Then let it be mine, she said. Lumi's voice echoed behind them. No more dying. She said. They turned, her eyes were glowing again bright gold. Brighter than ever before. I'm tired of hiding, she whispered. If they come, I will show them who I am. Lumi Sira started. No, the girl said. You told me I'm the future, so let me be it. Outside the chamber, the first hybrid dropped in. Lumi stepped forward, and the ice cracked beneath her feet. The chamber's light flickered as Lumi stepped forward, her small hands glowing with golden light. The hybrid at the entrance snarled, its mechanical limbs scraping the ground. Behind it, more shadows moved, 6 of them, maybe more. Mason raised his weapon. Lumi, fall back. You can't take them all. But she didn't move. Her golden eyes stared into the lead hybrid's face, calm. Fearless Den. Her voice echoed not loud, but powerful. You will not touch them. The hybrid froze. Sira gasped. The air in the room changed, thick, heavy, charged. A low hum vibrated through the walls as Lumi's body began to float slightly off the ground. Her hair lifted, blowing like threads of light. Then the hybrid screamed. Its body convulsed as if something inside it shattered. It collapsed, dead. The others charged. Mason fired. 2 hybrids fell, but more came. Sira ran to protect her daughter. Lumi, stop. You'll burn out. But Lumi didn't stop. She raised her arms, and a wave of gold light pulsed from her chest. The hybrids staggered back, some held their heads. Others dropped their weapons. One by one, they fell to their knees, shaking. They feel everything, Lumi whispered. My fear, my pain, my fire. Her voice cracked as tears ran down her face. I don't want to hurt, but I won't let them take us. She lifted her hand. A golden beam burst from her palm, hitting the ceiling. Ice and metal exploded, raining down between them and the hybrids. The remaining creatures turned and ran. Mason couldn't believe what he saw. She drove them off. Sira ran to her daughter, catching her as Lumi collapsed. The light faded. Her body went limp. She's still breathing, Sira said, holding her tightly, but barely. Mason knelt. She pushed herself too far. Sira looked at him, her face full of fear. She's never done that before. She's changing faster than I imagined. Mason checked his watch. 7 more hours until pickup. We won't survive another wave like that. We can't move her in this state, Sira said. And if they return, Mason stood and scanned the broken room. Then he saw something, a reinforced emergency door on the far wall. Covered in ice, but still sealed. What's behind that? He asked. Sira looked. That leads to the core room. Then we go there, Mason said. They'll expect us to stay here. But if we hide in the radiation-shielded walls, Lumi's signal will vanish. Sira nodded. You carry her, I'll watch her back. The core room was buried beneath layers of steel and rock. They broke through the icy locks and stepped into the dark chamber. It was warmer. Herald generators still hummed faintly, and the walls were lined with radiation-shielded plating. Mason laid Lumi down gently on a padded bench near the back. Sira checked her pulse again. Still stable, but her mind is quiet. She's sleeping, Mason asked. Sira shook her head. No, she's inside herself, recovering. Hiding, Mason leaned against the wall. She did something I've never seen before. She connected, Sira said, with all of them at once. That's why they screamed. Sira nodded. She didn't just hurt them. She showed them her soul. They weren't ready for it. Mason sat down, rubbing his face. I've seen war. I've seen monsters. But nothing like that. She is not a weapon, Sira whispered. She is a warning. Mason looked at her. To who? To everyone who still believes they can control life like machines, Sira said. The High Lords, the breeders, the councils. They wanted to mold her. But she is beyond them. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. The walls groaned. Then, no. New sound? Something heavy landed above the ceiling. Not a hybrid, something bigger. Mason jumped up. What now? Sierra's face turned pale. They've sent a prime. What's a prime? He asked. She answered with one word. Executioner. The ceiling above bent slightly. Then a massive fist smashed through. Mason pulled his weapon, but Sierra stopped him. No, we can't fight that. So what, just wait here and die? No, Sierra said. Wake her? Mason rushed to Lumi and touched her face. Lumi, wake up, please. Her eyes didn't open. The ceiling cracked again. A tall, dark figure dropped through the opening, a hybrid prime, 10 feet tall, built like a machine god. Red lights blinked from its chest. Blades folded out from its arms. It stepped forward, then. Lumi opened her eyes, golden again. Brighter than ever. She sat up slowly. The prime paused. You. It said in a deep, artificial voice. Yes. Lumi said, standing to her feet. I am not yours. The prime lunged. Lumi raised one hand, and the world stopped. Literally, Mason couldn't move. Even air hung still. Only Lumi moved now. She stepped forward, eyes locked on the prime. You kill without feeling, she whispered. You hunt without soul. She placed her hand on its chest. I give you what you took from others. Her golden light exploded. Not like fire, like truth. The prime twisted, its body cracking open from within, light pouring out. Then it vanished, disintegrated into dust and silence. Time resumed. Mason dropped to his knees, gasping. Sierra stared in awe. Lumi turned to them, now calm, her glow fading. I'm ready, she said quietly. Mason stepped forward. Ready for what? To leave, she whispered. To find a place where I don't have to burn. The snow had stopped falling. For the first time in days, the sky above Vorexia 9 was clear. Faint light filtered down through the cracked roof of the mining station. Outside, silence ruled the frozen wasteland. Inside the core room, Lumi stood. In the center, wrapped in a thick coat Mason had given her. Her face was calm. Her golden eyes no longer glowed, but something deep inside them had changed. She was no longer just a child. She was something more. Mason leaned against the wall, rubbing his sore shoulder. His body ached from the fight with the prime, but his mind was still trying to catch up. What exactly happened back there? He asked quietly. Sierra answered from beside him. Her voice was steady but tired. She didn't just destroy it, she unwrote it. The prime's mind was too machine to understand emotion. Lumi gave it something it had never felt. Mercy. Mason stared at the girl. She's more powerful than the High Lords could ever imagine. She is what comes after them, Sierra said. That's why they fear her. A beeping sound interrupted them. Mason checked his communicator. Inbound vessel 3 minutes out. He smiled. They came. Sierra stood slowly. Let's hope they're who they say they are. The landing site was nothing more than a flat patch of old concrete, surrounded by ruined buildings and frozen machines. Mason, Sierra, and Lumi waited near the edge, bags packed, weapons ready just in case. Then, in the distance, the sound of engines rumbled. A ship appeared through the clouds, sleek, gray, and unfamiliar. It slowed, hovering over the pad, then touched down gently. The back ramp lowered dote. Out stepped a tall man in a dark coat, followed by 2 others in heavy armor. Their weapons were visible but not raised. Traitor Mason Cole. The lead man called out. That's me, Mason replied. Stepping forward, we received your signal, the man said. You said you had a girl. She's here, Mason said, motioning to Lumi, who stood beside her mother. And she's not for sale, if that's what you're thinking. The man smiled faintly. Relax, we're not slavers. We're independent. We take people where they want to go, if they can pay. Mason looked at Sierra. She nodded. We have payment, she said, removing a small crystal from her coat. This holds decades of noble data, stolen from the High Council. Trade routes. Secrets. Power. The man took it, scanned it with his wrist pad, and his eyes widened. Yeah, that'll do. He looked at Lumi. What about her? She's just a child, Mason said. The man looked again at the girl. She feels like more. Mason stepped. In front of her, she is. But she's also under my protection. A long silence, then the man nodded. Understood. Welcome aboard. Inside the ship, the warmth returned. The hum of safety. The distant stars waited. Lumi sat by the window, staring out at the ice-covered planet shrinking beneath them. Sierra sat beside her, holding her daughter's hand gently. Mason walked over. You okay? Lumi nodded. Cold is gone. Inside, too. He asked. She looked at him, getting better. He smiled and sat across from her. You scared me. You know, when you went quiet like that? I was listening to the stars, she whispered. They're full of songs. Some are crying. Mason raised an eyebrow. That's poetic. It's true, she said. Sierra gave a small smile. She hears things none of us can. Then maybe the galaxy has a chance, Mason said. A voice came over the intercom. Next, jump in 2 minutes. Prepare for FTL. Sierra looked at Mason. Where will we go? Anywhere but here, he said. Someplace warm, quiet, a world without hunters. There are few of those left, she said softly. Then we'll make one, Mason replied. Lumi turned from the window. Will we stay together? Mason paused. Sierra looked at him, and then he nodded. Yeah, he said. We're a family. Now, aren't we? Lumi smiled, her eyes soft. Yes, my first real one. The ship jumped into faster dash than dash light dot. Outside the stars stretched into ribbons dot inside. 3 souls rested, no longer running, no longer hiding. Just beginning again. Together.